when I don't know people. I'm like uncomfortable until I'm like comfortable with people, and
exactly.
then I'm fine. But I feel like Owie just like has never met a stranger, and that lends itself.
I don't think he could be a stranger to anybody.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I wish I had a little bit more of that, but that's not.
That man is one of a kind.
Yeah, and that's what I've realized. I'm like, that's not you, and that's okay. Just do your best wear it.
Oh, all right.
I'm weak at your little church pamphlet.
Yeah, it's on my notes on you. I usually have a flip pad, but I didn't.
Sermon notes.
Usually I transfer it over, but I didn't transfer it over.
That's fine.
All right, welcome, y'all. This is the reincarnation of a Backstage Conversation with video, because people have been on my ass about not putting the video out.
Oop.
So, first episode back, none other than CJ Monet. I'll give a round of applause. All right, cool. But yeah, so CJ, I don't know if you've listened to the ones I've done 2 years ago, but
I didn't even know you 2 years ago, so I don't think I did.
Yeah, that's probably right. But yeah, so basically, just kind of a rundown on you, more back look into personal life and how you got into the music necessarily.
Okay.
But yeah, we could just start with that.
So how I got into music?
Yeah, start from what's your first instance of listening to music? I'll start with that rather than making
listening to music was definitely like growing up. My mom would play music. My dad had a huge record collection, but I didn't really remember finding out about that until later.
Okay.
My earliest memories were my mom playing Fred Hammond and Luther Vandross.
Okay.
And Carole King in the house.
So very much stemming from your parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Initially, yeah. And church, because we went to church every week. So I think you don't really realize singing music every week, regardless of the words, just in a setting, in a community, music and community are inextricably linked for me. Mm-hmm. And I think that looking back, that has to be because of church.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Because my introduction to really or consistent introduction to actually singing was
church.
Church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. So what age do you put that at, roughly?
I mean, I went to church from the time I was I went to Christian school and church. So I was in church 6 out of 7 days.
Did you go to public school at all?
No.
None? Never?
No, I went to a strict private Christian school for the time I was in kindergarten to the time I graduated high school.
How was that? Do you think you missed out on anything being not in public school?
The issue is this, right? My mom did what she thought was best for our education.
For sure. Because
we were in Alamance County. I don't know how much you know about Alamance County, but the schools aren't the best in terms of education. And I did have really amazing teachers who actually really cared about our education. And so in that sense, I really appreciate being there, but I think there was a lot of unlearning I had to do in leaving.
Okay.
Just because, especially as a woman in that space and being kind of a people pleaser, there was so much stuff I took on in terms of what I wear, what I say, what I do, how I express myself, that I was so constricted in a lot of ways. Sure. And so I kind of had to go to college. I went to ECU for college, and that was really where I sort of found what is the difference between what you believe and what people have been feeding you?
For sure. Because that's I guess your first introduction into something different.
Well, it's you think
as far as school though.
You think about 'em 6 out of 7 days a week I'm in a church setting.
Oh yeah, because even Sunday is going right back to it. Yeah.
Right. So it's just I didn't realize how much of my life was that. And it's not at the school that they were every class they're not talking about the Bible or anything like that necessarily, but the teachers are the focus and the forefront and the teachers were all focused on a Christian perspective.
Okay.
So, that is the way, for example, we're in our science class, we're learning about evolution, but there's a disclaimer from the teacher that this is not what we believe, but I'm teaching you this for the test so you can pass the AP environmental science test or whatever test there was that, we had to learn about. At least I guess we learned about it because there are some Christian schools that wouldn't even teach it. Is
y'all's dress code strict?
Yeah, and it was stricter for I was tall, and it was based on where your knee was. So it was 3 inches above your knee or a postcard above your knee, and I'm do you
postcard above the knee?
Yeah, and it's just it was very hard for me to find clothes unless I'm wearing long pants or a long skirt that would be that, because it's What skirts? Like, who's wearing a knee-length skirt? Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, because Catherine, she did, I don't remember if she did, I think she did elementary school into middle school, and then went from middle school to public high school, but she was the same way where they were like, they weren't, I think she said they weren't allowed to show their knees.
Yeah, so there's stricter versions. Like, I wasn't in a strict Christian school, but it was strict in ideology and less so in practice, I guess. So like the dress code was strict, but it wasn't like compared to some of the counterparts was not as bad.
Okay, that makes sense.
I guess if that kind of makes sense.
All right, well then, so fast forward. Actually, hang on. Let me ask some questions that I have. Not even questions.
Some questiones.
Because I have a nice collection
Preguntas.
here. And if I hit any things that are or not uncomfortable necessarily, but if you don't want to talk about
anything,
it's cool.
I don't care.
All right, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
So talk about your lifetime muse.
My lifetime muse?
Mm-hmm. You said Mimi?
Oh yeah. That's my little baby. That's my grandma. It's my mom's mom. She is an artist, and she was the one who got me into like actual physical art. Like some of my earliest memories were her, like me being at her house, because we would go to her house every Thursday. Like she'd pick us up from school and would take us, like to go to McDonald's and get a freaking ice cream cone. Like, I don't know, it was a good time.
Yeah.
And then she lived on a lot of land, so we would go, like, ride. They had a golf cart, and we'd just, like, ride around their land and be out in nature. And
I guess, your mom and them, did y'all live in the city more so?
No, we just lived more in we lived in a neighborhood. She lives, like, in the country.
Okay.
So that's really just the main difference. But we lived, like, 5-10 minutes apart, so it's not...
Always.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. Growing up, literally, we live in the middle of nowhere, and then my grandma's house is, like, 15 minutes from my mom's.
Yeah.
And then my aunt's house is, like, 2 minutes from my mom's.
Right.
And I was like, yeah.
Similar, yeah. So she was the first person who really introduced me to art, so I didn't really get into, like, music until, like, as far as singing and making music until, like, 2019.
And were you in school you were at ECU at that point?
I didn't release anything until after I graduated.
Oh shit, okay.
So I got into it really late, and I think that's the part that, like, if I could go back and change something, I would start making music earlier, but I think it goes back to that, like, expressing yourself. I think to me, art felt like a silent way to do that.
Okay.
And music felt like a look at me, listen to me.
Yeah.
Like, there's something so, and like for me in particular, and I don't know if there's other people who have been in like a stricter Christian setting, like as a woman, maybe other people are less bothered by it, but I think that, I wanted to do the right thing and be a good kid and all those things. And so I think for me, there was this underlying, like, don't speak up kind of vibe. So it was like music felt very like, look at me, listen to me.
Yeah.
There's something so personal about the vocalization itself.
It's almost like the opposite of what they were wanting.
It was. And so I think there was a lot of unlearning I had to really do. And not that it was even like said to me explicitly, but I think it was just like the environment itself imposed that on me.
Mm-hmm. Even if it wasn't spoken.
Yes.
Well, then ECU. So you went in for neuroscience, I saw? I literally just saw the podcast you did the other day about talking about going in for neuroscience.
Yeah, neuroscience and art history. So
did you go in with wanting to do both off the jump?
No.
Okay.
So my whole debate high school year was like, okay, am I going to go to an art school or am I going to go to,
your standard name, I guess.
Like, because I was, I ended up being valedictorian of my high school. So, like, I was smart and knew I could get a scholarship, and, like, everyone tells you when you're smart you need to be a doctor and blah,
or a lawyer,
blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, I'm going to be a brain surgeon. Like,
shoot for the stars.
Yeah,
right?
I was like, I don't know who I thought I was, honestly, but, I mean, do I think that I could have done it if I had stuck with it and put my all into it? Yeah,
Probably.
Because, like, to my mom's credit, absolutely, like, she has always told us, like, you can do absolutely anything you want to do. And, like, I firmly believe that to this day, and I didn't realize how many people don't live their life that way. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of freedom in thinking that anything that you put your mind to, you can do. So anyway, yeah, so I went to ECU on a full ride scholarship with the Brinkley Lane Scholars Program, UC Scholars, for neuroscience.
Crazy.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get out of neuroscience? Or I guess you you graduated with it.
Well, because I liked it.
So, at what point did you add on the art history part?
Junior year, when I got back from study abroad.
Dude, all right, talk about the study abroad. Because what kind of
so many random things.
What kind of program is that?
Semester at sea.
Dude, I read that. Shout out also ECU because they posted everything.
They post everything.
Everything about your life.
Yeah.
And I saw that. I literally just typed in your full name and it popped up and I was like, 116 days at sea. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, I guess that's just a program they offer.
So I've been to like 27 countries.
Yeah, fucking insane.
Yeah. So it wasn't through ECU, but I knew I wanted.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's through Colorado State University. But with the EC Scholars, one of the things, well, now it's Brinkley Lane. They changed the name because there's a sponsorship.
Someone gave more money.
Yeah. So with that, you're given a stipend for study abroad. You're required to study abroad.
That's how mine was at NC State.
Yeah.
You either study abroad or they make you write like
Were you Park?
What?
Park Scholars at NC State?
No, I was no.
Oh, okay.
I was average.
He said I was average, but I had study abroad.
At average. I come from a nice, on paper, my family, like my mom's side, or like how I grew up looks real good on paper. Like lower income, but like decently smart. Like actually, I take it back. I'm above average. I'll give it myself that.
Yeah,
but I'm not valedictorian by any means.
Well, I was valedictorian in a class of 45.
Okay.
So I had much less competition than the average person.
So my graduating class was 420 something.
Case in point.
And I was I was top 50, so I'll take that.
Okay.
But we had the study abroad where it was either you study abroad or you have to write like a capstone, like research 25-page paper.
Travel 25-page paper.
Exactly.
Like,
so I was like, I guess I'm going abroad
yeah,
then. But,
I'm going abroad for sure.
But yeah, so freaking, was it a cruise ship?
Yeah, so it was the funny part is like, it's a cruise ship, right? But I had never been on a cruise. I had never been on a ship like that until I did this.
Cruises scare the shit out of me.
Okay.
I don't like being
this one would
locked.
terrify you because you imagine the regular size of a cruise ship. Like if you've ever been on a big cruise ship, this was not that big. This was a 500 passenger cruise ship.
Okay.
So the size was half or smaller of what your average cruise ship is. So like I remember basically the setup is whenever you're on the ship, you're in classes.
Fair enough. Okay.
Whenever you're ported, you're not in class.
Oh,
you can do whatever you want in the country.
So you're literally in class at sea. And then when you're not at sea, you're free reign.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we would port places typically for like 4 days to a week.
That's a solid time to be ported somewhere.
Yeah. So
I was thinking like a day or two.
No.
But yeah, because that way you can actually go and do stuff.
Like we were in Hawaii for a day.
Okay.
We were in Mauritius for a day. But a lot of times those day stops were because we were going so far that like we needed somewhere to stop for fuel and food.
Sure. Makes sense.
Because our first, I about lost it when we were going from like the California, because we had to fly to San Diego. They drove us down to Mexico, and that's where we left out of. I think it's cheaper to port in Mexico. That's what I'm assuming. So we had to cross the border and everything, which was interesting. Like I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on.
Getting into Mexico was easy.
Yeah, getting in was mad.
Getting in is easy.
We just walked in the bus and they were like, ah.
Yeah, drive through.
Yeah.
A few times I've gone to Mexico through El Paso. And it was literally walk in. I think I had to pay 25 cents, like literally 25 cents, and you just walk in. And then, but getting back, of course, took like 2 hours. And
then, they checked our bus quickly, but it was like a quick walk through. Like it was less than 15 minutes. And so anyway, so we ship out of. For some reason I want to say Ensenada, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't call me.
Either way.
Yeah. So we poured out of there. We go to Hawaii, so that was a few days in between, I think. And then from Hawaii to Japan was like somewhere between a week and 10 days straight of only water.
Only water.
Only water.
Do you hit like storms?
Also, I'll get there.
Okay.
So we ported, and I had never, we had no cell service. And I didn't quite realize that when I was signing up for this, that we had access to email, but not internet.
Oh,
so we could email people for free.
That's your only conversation.
So my only conversation with anybody was through email.
Because I guess this is what year is this?
2017.
Okay, so iPhone is around, but not heavy. Because that was my thing.
It's not even that. People all had iPhones.
Yeah. Because when we went to Santiago, of course, I have no phone service, but I can go on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So I guess no Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi.
Just straight email. Crazy.
Email.
Okay.
Because if you wanted Wi-Fi, you had to pay for it. It was very expensive, and I was like,
why not?
I wasn't going to pay for that, so. That was really interesting. I remember I kept checking my phone and there's no notifications. It's just habit.
Damn.
And it was such an interesting thing, but I have to be on my phone so much for what we do, freelancing, whatever. And it's I do miss just being able to unplug. Life is so much simpler.
And being forced to unplug.
The overstimulation, all that. I didn't realize how overstimulated, and I'm just constantly overstimulated now ever since I got back from that trip. And it's It's weird because it sort of just like made me realize how like we're living is just not, I don't know. It's very positive in a lot of ways, but it's also very taxing in a lot of ways.
It's consume.
It is so much consumption that it's almost disgusting to me. And like, I'm guilty of it, but you almost have to be successful.
In some way, shape, or form, you have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get away with not having a phone. Mm-hmm. You'd have no friends, you wouldn't know what events are if you don't have Instagram. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
there's no bulletin boards.
And even if there are, it's like people don't really use them.
Not like they used to.
No.
Even the ones on like campus at State, I remember they'd have it a few, but it would always be someone would take over the bulletin board and it would just plaster the same thing over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So it was like, but yeah.
So so the most interesting part is, well, there were several times I was like, I almost died. I'm like,
okay, what do you do if you don't want to be there anymore?
This one guy decided he wanted to stay in South Africa because he loved Cape Town so much, and he stayed and got deported the next day, and they shipped him home because they're like, your visa was only for 10 days. You can't stay. God. So the hotel like alerted the authorities and shipped his ass home the next day.
Crazy.
It was so funny, but yeah, they told us if you're not on the ship, you get left. If you're not on there by the time you're supposed to be, you leave, because it's like the fines are apparently insane.
For them if they don't leave?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, the only time, storm-wise, we had a couple storms, and like the worst storm was when we were taking finals, and that was fun. Oh yeah, the other thing was because we don't have the internet, we're writing papers and things. We're using fucking encyclopedias and books out of the library on the ship. Like there were a couple online resources, like what you could use Wikipedia, but like you couldn't cite that as a source.
Yeah, you can't cite it.
So it was like, it was wild. I'm like, I'm doing schoolwork in the 80s. This is good. But yeah, so there was a storm during our like last week we were taking finals, and we were supposed to port in Germany, but the storm was so bad that we had to end up like diverting and porting in Portugal.
Okay.
Because the waves were going to be like 20 feet or something, 10 meters, I think they said.
Jesus.
Which they were already bad in the part that we were like going around. So we were getting like, we were walking down the hallway and the ship would just move and you'd like run into the wall. Then you'd be walking and you'd like run into the other wall.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it was such an interesting experience because I think it just really, it changed my entire perspective on everything, like my worldview.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because I realized, like, I think if you don't get out of America and really, like, entrench yourself in other cultures, you don't realize, like, you can't know your culture until you're removed from it.
Facts.
And so I think it did a really good job of decentering my idea of the world, meaning that I didn't just think, like, oh, this is the way things are done. Like, no, it is a way things are done. It's not necessarily the way things are done.
I mean, we are one out of however many countries exist in the world.
Like hundreds.
Yeah.
So... that was just like, you can say that all day and like, you know it mentally, but until you're sort of put in that place and you're like, okay, so time is not a construct here the way it is in America.
No, of course not.
And like learning about that was so interesting because I'm such a time, like, oh, I'm on time. Like, I try my best to be on time everywhere. Like, I rule my life by my calendar. We were talking about that. And this was like a relationship centered culture. And I was in several of those where it's like, the focus is on like, okay, I'm here in this conversation right now. I may have something at 11, but if we're still having a conversation, I'm not going to cut that short to move to the next thing because we're present in the moment.
I know a lot of, I have a friend who we met when I was in South America doing study abroad, and they're from England, but now I think they live in Spain.
Yeah.
But they've lived in Spain for like quite a few years now, but they were talking about how like time is not a factor there.
Time is so Eurocentric.
Like, you're 15, like you're supposed to be somewhere at 11. You could be there 11:30, and it's
12,
not, and it's not like argued upon.
No.
You're just like here when you get here.
Right, but here it's like that. It's not like that at all.
I gotta make sure the thing's still recording.
Oh yeah, check it out.
Yeah, we're still good. We're still cooking. Let's go ahead and just reset it while I'm here. Okay. All right, good. We'll run it. All right.
But yeah,
sorry, I had to reset.
That was just such an interesting like. Then I almost felt like I had to readjust when I got back and like
culture shock.
Yeah, reacclimate myself.
So I guess a good question is, did you have? Because you talk about, because I had culture shock definitely when I got to South America, because we were there for like 3 months, give or take. Not even 3 months. I take that back, like a month and a half almost too. And the first week, culture shock, because it's like, granted my Spanish is decent, so I can get by, but I can't have conversation. I can get what I need off and semi break down what I need to hear back, But as far as holding a conversation, I'm lost. So it's like that first week luckily I had someone with me who we got there early because we wanted to not have class.
Yeah.
And she's fluent. So we got to go walk around and she was
That's
helpful.
nice.
But like, dude, yeah, I know a lot of people that were with us spent all their time, like if they weren't in class, they were inside.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a culture shock.
Yeah.
So you moving from country to country to country.
It was just a lot. It was a lot. And like some people, I think, I don't know, I'm more of an absorber when I'm traveling, I feel like, rather than like I'm not just gonna, like I'm gonna try to read the room and read the vibe and see like, you know, kind of like pay attention to how are people moving.
That's the people pleaser in you for sure.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, thank you, Christian Church. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, but I think in that scenario, it does lend itself well because I think a lot of like what I saw and a lot of people I was traveling with that was really frustrating and kind of appalling to me was like, they just did whatever they wanted to do. Like I saw videos of people shotgunning beers in the middle of the street in Vietnam and on the freaking like Great Wall of China. And like, that's cool, but culturally that's just like, this is a place of honor, right? Like the Great Wall of China is a huge deal and you're up there shotgunning beers. Like it just...
And y'all feed into this image of what these other countries already think of us.
Exactly. And I'm like, if that's what they're saying, I hate it too.
Yeah.
I'm like, because it's just, to me, it's disrespectful. This is not your land. This is not your place. It's not your monument. It's not your whatever it may be. And it's sacred to a lot of people who live here. So, I mean, that would be like, do you ever see someone from another country go up to like freaking the edge of the White House and shotgun a beer? No, like,
or even like Washington Monument, or like even like Abraham Lincoln's memorial and stuff like that.
It's just like, and if that is the way that we're being perceived, I get it, and I saw it in action on that trip, and I was just like,
this is why people think about us like this,
right? It was just, yeah, I hated that part of it, and so I think I was just processing a lot of like, I don't really like a lot of pieces of the culture I come from and the way that they're moving about the world and like...
And I guess that's a good way to really see it too.
Yeah.
Because you see it in a different environment. Like you said, you get put in an environment and in a culture that's not yours. And then you see your culture acting the way it does in that. And you're like, wow.
And as an observer in that space, I'm like, I would feel furious. Like I'm upset and I feel embarrassed about people's actions that aren't even mine, but I'm with this group of people and yeah. So anyway, I know we went on a long tangent about semester at sea, but yeah, it was such a layered, nuanced experience that taught me like so much about the world, but also like so much about myself. You know, and the focus is not on me when I'm going somewhere else. Like I want to learn about the people that I'm, you know, like traveling, visiting countries that I'm visiting. But like, I think inherently when you're removed from your comfort, you learn a lot about yourself.
Dude, I was there 6 weeks. First time I ever ended up writing music out there. First time and like attempting to record it on like some computer mic I bought from some random place out there. But it's like getting put in that environment where you are almost... I guess the advantage is there were a few people in my group, of course, there's like 10 of us. And so that was helpful. But then there's times where like people don't want to, like people aren't want to go do stuff every day. So you have those days where you're like, I'm scared to go do something because I don't know what's happening outside. I can't even have conversations. And it's like, it's almost very, I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even know the word for it, but it's like it's so much self-reflection because you're like, fuck, I'm by myself. Like genuinely, I am a non-existing person in this environment.
Well, and I think like that was the part, I almost imagine it as like here, there's lots of strings attached to you that tie you to different pieces of things of who you are. And it feels secure, so you don't question it.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
And so I think when all of those ties are cut and you're physically somewhere else, but you're culturally somewhere else, you also then are emotionally somewhere else. And it feels like you're almost floating.
Yeah, because you know how someone was having a conversation the other day and they were talking about how, or I read something where they were talking about, you know how you're on the highway driving and you see someone in the car next to you and you're like, your lives have never intersected.
No.
You have no idea who this person is.
They might be having the best day of their life or the worst day of their life.
And you have no idea.
You have no idea. You don't even know their name.
That is like the first example of being, I think, feeling that.
Yeah.
Like the term we use, that onism stuff, where you're like stuck in one body at one place at one time.
Right.
And I'm like, you just, scary.
Well, it's like we're all living in the world at the same place at the same time, but in Japan, it's 14 hours ahead, right? And they're living a totally different life, a totally different experience, a totally different day simultaneously.
Don't even know we exist.
But it's like a completely different world. so I think it just like, yeah, it just like really makes you aware of, you think about all the things that are granted for you in your day-to-day life. Like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive here, I'm going to do, all that's taken away when you travel, right? Like, I've got to figure out how to get places. I got to figure out how to, like, your mind is just so, like, in the state of, like, I don't know, not calculating, but, like, it's figuring like, things out.
It's almost like survival, not necessarily, but it's like, I guess, a little less than survival. But I feel like when you go to certain places in different countries, your, like, mind has to go to survival mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I feel like that's, like, as as primal as we can get going to a new country.
Yeah.
You're like, bro, I'm nowhere. I'm lost.
Well, because civilization's cool, but it's only civilization when that's the civilization you're used to. You go to a different civilization, it can be just as civilized, but it's a different civilization, so you're completely relearning what civilization means to these people.
Yeah.
So,
wild time.
Yeah. Well, like, listen, I was praying over my food. I ain't prayed it. Like, it's one thing to pray over your food here. It's a different thing to pray over your food in another country where you're not quite sure what you're eating, but that's what you got. So
we had people who were when they went down with us to South America, they were vegetarian, and they had to like.
You're not going to be for long.
No, they had to like literally within the first week they were like we had to like readapt. One girl was lucky she was pescatarian and it's very fish heavy on the
easy,
coast right there. But yeah, one of the vegetarian girls, she definitely, but she also wanted to commit to it.
Yeah.
Because she was like, if I'm gonna be here, like I'm gonna be here.
Food is a huge part of culture. Huge part of culture, you know? So it's like.
And it's rare you go to places who meat is not the primary source.
Right.
But yeah. But all right, so good trip, I guess. 116 days at sea.
Yeah, I don't even know if like good is not the word that I would use for it.
I feel like it's just an experience.
Yes. It was a really good experience.
What was I going to? I had a few things written down. So, talk about your research project you did. The cannabis oil on
cannabinoid, yeah. So when
how do you say it?
Cannabinoid.
Okay, that's why.
Or cannabidiol was the name of the.
That's what I was trying to say.
Injection we used. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to read that over and over, and I could not pronounce it.
Yeah. So when I was at ECU, I did research through neuroscience at Brody Medical School, and my project that I picked to work on was with Dr. Kenneth Soderstrom, and he did birds. So well, he didn't do birds, but he used birds.
Birds were his primary source.
You know what I mean? English.
People we live in today.
Yeah, right. So basically, we were using zebra finches and testing if, like, from a micro lesion in their brain speech area, if they could relearn how to sing with cannabidiol injections, which is basically just CBD oil.
That's what I figured.
Or CBD like liquid.
Okay.
And the practical use for that, and the reason we use zebra finches is they learn how to sing from their parents, just like we learn how to speak from our parents.
Okay.
So the way that they learn speech is very similar to the way we learn speech.
Okay.
And so there was a whole process, like they'd be in the room with their parents, they would learn how to sing. Once they were an acceptable singer or whatever, they would then be moved to a separate cage, and like basically we would measure bird songs. There was recordings constantly for all the birds.
Okay.
And so my job was to go through and like, which is funny now I'm looking back, I'm like, I was working with sound stuff before. I was like making music.
Heavy sound.
And even like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it so differently, like just even quickly diverting back to the trip, I couldn't make art on the ship.
Oh yeah.
That was really hard. And at that point I was only making art. So I started writing. I wrote like a 200-page book just from journaling on that trip. And so that was really where I started transmuting that art into words. And I think that really ended up lending itself to me making music eventually. And then, so basically with this, what I would do is I would go through and I've learned how to distinguish like a call from a song.
Okay. Yeah.
Via the audio file.
They all sound like noises to me.
Yeah, they do.
Especially
but
when I'm waking
I could
up.
tell on sound waves.
Okay. Yeah,
so
that
I
makes
would read
sense.
the sound wave files, and basically like we were counting the calls, so I would delete any of the ones that didn't have a call, or delete any of the ones that didn't have a song that just had a call, whatever. And then we would count it, and we were basically judging the like based on like once they'd had the micro lesion, how quickly do they return to their normal song pattern. Or do they return to their normal song pattern based on the amount of CBD they're receiving or not receiving? To eventually be used in patients with strokes or kids who have seizures and lose speech ability. Basically just to help restore speech in anyone who's lost it via some sort of traumatic occurrence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it come out like semi-plausible or?
Yeah, so we found that there was like and this is very simplified because,
For sure.
this is years of research. There was like a window of dosage that was very successful. So it was like too little didn't do it, too much had the opposite effect. The sweet spot was kind of somewhere in the middle, which, if you're a person who generally smokes or uses CBD or Delta 8 or Delta 9 or real,
you're nowhere in that, right?
You understand that like too little, you're not going to feel it. Too much, you regret your whole life.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense in that scope.
Okay. Wow. Crazy.
But yeah, so that was cool. I almost forgot I did that.
I didn't. Shout out the internet.
Thank you, ECU. Yeah, they're thorough.
Everything.
I didn't even know that was on the website.
Yeah, dude, they have the whole write-up.
Did they really?
Not on you necessarily, but they had the whole, like, I guess...
Like the bullet points?
Yeah, I guess the final research, like everything you did. And in your name.
Yeah, and then I made art pieces about it.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so I did an art show where I collaborated with researchers and artists, and I ended up doing like...
Wait, is that the Cranium?
Maybe?
Is that Cranium series?
Oh no, that's different.
Okay, it's different.
How did you even find that shit? I'm weak. Okay.
I think that was also ECU.
Yeah, no, that wasn't ECU. But yeah, so what was I talking about?
We talked about the whole art piece series behind it.
So this girl stitched together canvases from her name is Lacey. I don't remember her last name, but she made canvases from neuroscience textbooks, and so.
Okay.
I painted.
She had done this before?
No.
Or, okay, you got her to do this.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
that's what I was like, wait, did she already do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did that, and then this one girl who was a photographer made a box in the middle and like constructed a cool box, and my pieces on the canvases went around the box.
Okay.
And basically we're the bird going from like sitting to in flight, kind of representing the path of this like regaining speech.
Okay.
And how like speech is freedom in a lot of ways.
Is that the Blossom series? No.
I've had too many series.
I know. The one thing I kept finding was everything.
Yeah.
Series. Okay, but either way.
So many ideas and so little time. But yeah. So that was like a cool little art project we did, led up by one of my favorite professors at ECU, who was a biology professor, but who got into astrophotography and now does like really cool bug photography and just super dope stuff. And
Dude, the macro photography blows my mind.
In the fine art world, yeah, he's incredible. Tim Christensen, if you ever want to look him up.
Okay.
His work is amazing. And he was the one who really pushed me. I had several talks with him while I was there about, like, I have this duality in my brain and I'm not sure how to honor both, because I think there's a huge misconception, and I've said this before, and I'll say it a million times. There's a huge misconception that artists don't use their intellectual ability, and that art is not an intellectual thing.
Okay.
That like, because the thing that people kept saying to me when I decided my junior year I was going to do art instead of science was like, you're wasting your intellect. Like, why are you doing that? Like, if you could be a doctor, why would you be an artist? And it's like... Yeah.
I could see that because people do think there's that separation where it's like because it's
that it's not as hard.
Stems that whole from left side, right side brain necessarily, where it's like left side is more creative, or right side, whichever one it is.
Right side is more creative.
Well, yeah. So people are like, yeah, the right side is more creative, left side. So you're like, oh, you're right brained. I'm like, no, like I can be both.
You can be both.
Yeah.
You can be both.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of great researchers. And one thing that my research kind of head told me is he's like, all the best researchers are very creative.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's like you have to think like creatively enough to do the research.
Right. You have to find a problem and then think of a solution and a way to test that process as well.
And it's
tangibly.
all creative.
Right.
Even if you're not using the word creative.
Right.
It's still like you have to go outside of the box to be like, all right, especially when people are trying new research or trying to find new solutions, or even like, what movie did I just watch? I watched some movie with, of course I can't remember, Russell Crowe, some old professor at Yale, yada, yada. I think he has schizophrenia in the movie. It's based on a true story, but either way, it's like he goes in and everyone there wants to come up with a new mathematic solution that's never been done before. And so it's like, okay, well, if we're doing that, you have to start from nowhere.
Right.
You have to start from nowhere.
Right.
So it's like, all right, now how can I creatively create a brand new solution that no one's ever thought of in the world? But yeah, it's all creative.
It's all creative. And I think about it as like this almost, it's interesting because I think like math and science are perceived as totally opposite of arts and creative stuff, right? And I think on the surface, they're very different, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's almost like a 360 circle where they meet back at the back end. And it's like, to be a good mathematician, to be a good scientist, you have to have those creative things. But that's not what's typically seen on the surface, but that's the underlying skills that make you really successful. Same thing with art. On the surface, you're really creative, you're really thinking, but on the underside, what makes you really successful is the logistics, is the rationality, is how can I make this idea tangible? So they're really like way more connected than people give them credit for.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's the same thing with politics, right? You think about like far right and far left. Like super far right, super far left have a lot more in common than they do with people in the middle.
For sure. Because y'all are both extremes to one end of the idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're willing to like literally shit on your ideals because someone doesn't agree with you. You know, in some sense, because it's like, and even like, you know, I'm super liberal, but there's people on the far left that it's like you're telling people that they're not caring, that they're not kind, that they're mean, that they're all these things that you perceive yourself to be, and literally bullying them for doing certain things that are against, because you're not doing the thing that is kind and caring, but you don't realize in the way that you're carrying that out, you're literally
rejecting
doing the
Yeah. Because it's like,
you're literally being unkind, you're bullying, you're doing all the same things you're accusing them of doing because they're not doing, you know, and vice versa. Right?
It goes both ways.
It goes both ways.
And it's also like if you change the topic of discussion within that realm, if someone was doing that to you about some other topic, it's like, I don't even want to learn about it now.
Right.
If someone's like battering you about this and that,
Exactly.
it's like, well, damn, all right, well, now I don't even want to talk anymore.
Right.
So now you close off the ideas to even trying to have a conversation with it. Let's see. I saw you did a mural for the Air Force.
Yeah. What in the hodgepodge ass shit have I done? Yeah.
Like a 44-foot mural?
44 by 9 foot mural for the Air Force ROTC at ECU. So it's still there. If you're at ECU or at the Air Force and you want to go see it, it's in the ROTC building. But yeah, I did their whole classroom, and it's basically the history of the Air Force.
Okay.
So I started with the Wright brothers plane.
Yes. Okay.
I went all the way to, like, did planes throughout the Air Force history, all the way to the Space Force, and like satellite. I did a satellite and like a bunch of cool stuff. And then I had to ombre the wall. That was a real
Did you ombre it after?
No, okay. I ombre it before with a freaking roller. I'm sitting there like while house paint dries super quick.
So quick.
So I'm like, trying to like ombre the wall.
Trying to get this thing figured out. Jesus.
Because I did that on the mock-up and they loved it. And I was like, I didn't think about the feasibility of this and like blending paint at a full wall scale. It was a nightmare, but it ended up working out fine.
That's funny as hell.
Took me like a month.
Oh, good one at ECU. You were president of the Coming Together Collective?
Oh, yeah. So.
And then I saw y'all did like a peace walk?
Yeah. So Coming Together Collective was basically, we saw, like, it started kind of stem from this class that I had with a man named Dr. Bailey, who does a lot of classes. I think he does a lot of classes in the health field, but on health disparities with race and class and all those kind of things. And so we were just learning so much, and all of us who were in the class kind of were like, there is a problem at ECU. As much as we love ECU, it's super diverse, right? And the diversity is great, but there was such a separation between all the different cultures, races, all this stuff where you just saw all these little pods, but like no one is interacting with each other. And there's not a lot of crossover, but to an extent, I understand why, because like a lot of so some of the Divine Nine frats had reached out to white frats and white sororities to do some collaboration. And from what I understand, were turned down. So it's like and that's not the only example, but it's more so you would just walk through the class and you'd see like all the white people are sitting together, all the black people are sitting together. And there's nothing wrong with that at the end of the day, right? If you want to be separate and you want to, if you feel more comfortable, that's totally fine. I think what we were trying to do with Coming Together was just create a space and time where people can talk openly about like the things that they're facing, that they're feeling, and that they're, almost experiencing at ECU.
Almost like a safe space.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of places now.
A safe space to discuss why is this happening. Like, I understand why it's happening, but like, can we actually talk about it from people from those different communities? Because
that's the other thing, is there's the safe spaces that quote unquote exist. They're not always the safest as far as like the discussion.
Right.
And it's especially now with, quote unquote like cancel culture and stuff like that. It's hard to be able to have a discussion post where it's like, I did fuck up, but it's like, now how, like, what can we do to resolve it?
Accountability is a bit. So the last little bit, what were we talking about just 2 seconds ago?
I don't know. I think we were leading up with, for whatever reason, if y'all don't know, this camera I'm using.
My job. Have you ever had a real job?
Yes. Well, I think we missed the last little piece before that, but sorry, y'all.
It's okay. I was just repeating myself like 20 times.
Back to the thing, it's hard to have tough talks to people who don't want to have
tough discussions. And I understand why, because like you said, nowadays with cancel culture, it's just like you say the wrong thing in the discussion and it's weaponized. So it's not really a safe space to have a conversation.
And my thing is like, also it comes to people being willing to have like creative criticism.
Yeah. And a willingness to change your perspective. Like if you're wrong and you're open.
If you're going in not wanting to change anything at all, then why are we going to have a discussion?
Well, and that's what I think. A lot of people now, it's like there's a right side of the discussion in people's heads and a wrong side of the discussion. And if you're on the wrong side from the jump, you're discredited. So it's like, and not that, I was really ever in that position, but like, I think that's what deters people is that like, how you're raised, how, your life that you've experienced, really there's only a certain window outside of that you can learn without having discussions with people that are not in your realm. Just like I wouldn't have the same perspective on the world if I hadn't traveled.
For sure. Exactly.
It's a
and
similar
it's little
concept.
things like that, like
it is.
Being out in the world, moving to a new place, experiencing somewhere where you're not born and raised with everyone else whose parents were also born and raised in the same 30-mile diameter or 30-mile radius that you still live in.
Right.
That was like my big thing with leaving where I was from is there tends to be a lot of people there who are very close-minded, come from a place super country type of thing. So it's like, as soon as I had the opportunity, aka graduating, I was like, I'm not going to live here. Yeah. And I remember my mom telling me graduation, she's like, you're not moving back. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're not moving back. And I was like, okay. No. And I have not moved back since. I've been in Raleigh since then, but it's just a different experience because it's like you grow day in, day out. You see the same people. Where I'm from, we had one high school. You go to school with the same people. Yeah. From kindergarten to senior graduating. So it's like, well, I need to meet more people. Yeah. In general. Well, and
I think I had a hard time with friends growing up because most everybody at my school was into sports and I wasn't really super into sports. Yeah. I tried to sort of be into sports, but I wasn't, and so it was that was really the only way people were making friendships unless you were kind of in the weird group, but I didn't really feel like I fit in with that either.
Fair. You're in that middle ground of
the middle ground is a bitch. Yeah.
People don't talk about that, dude.
No, it's I'm kind of cool, but I'm a nerd, but but I also am creative and I don't feel like there's anywhere I really resonate with people at all with that lineup of traits.
Especially pre-social media.
Pre-social media at a Christian school, no, it was rough. I'm not even gonna lie, it was rough. But what were we talking about? Oh, have you ever had a real job?
Yes, real job.
So real job. So I did have one real job.
I did see this on there. You're still listed on
hated it. Oh my God. It taught me that number one, I am very introverted. Okay. And two, that I will do anything to not have to work a job like that. Anything.
Okay, so what was your job? I think you said
I think
you said it off camera.
I was a receptionist at Mercedes-Benz.
Where?
In Greensboro.
Yeah, there. Okay. I feel like that's another key piece.
Oh my God, if they see this, I'm sorry. I didn't hate the people I worked with. I just hated the actual job. Because I would literally get there at 7, and I only worked this part-time. It wasn't even a full-time job. I literally did it 3 days out of the week. But it was from 7 to 6 every day, or 7:30 to 6. And the second I get in there and it hits 8, there are phone call after phone call after phone call after phone call because I was a receptionist for the sales and service.
Oh, so you're just directing calls all day.
So I'm directing calls. I've got 3 calls on hold almost all the time. Most days I didn't get a lunch break. They would pay for my lunch if I stayed in. So I'm like, well, why would I leave to get a lunch break if they'll pay for my lunch if I stay here and I don't lose the hour of pay? So I was like,
Kid thinking.
Yeah, I was like...
College kid who needs money thinking.
No, really. I was like... But this was after I graduated.
Okay, so this is fresh out of college?
Yeah, so this is out of college, 6 months out of college. Because I told my mom, I had talked with my mom, and basically I lived with my mom for 2 years after graduation so that I could give art full-time a try.
For sure.
Because I knew that without any sort of financial backing, and not that she financially backed me, but I had a place to stay for free.
That is literally the game changer. That is literally game changer. Majority of the money I spend is specifically just on rent. Yeah, and so she's amazing for that, and so that's really what made it tangible. But I was like, well, it wouldn't hurt to get a part-time job. But I just remember coming home and my mom was like, you are a different person when you come home from that job. She's like, you have
I had no energy, like couldn't even talk to her.
Just exhausted.
Just exhausted from talking all day. Like the number of times I'd answer the phone and be like, Mercedes-Benz of Greensboro, how can I direct your call? Like I knew it was bad when my mom called me one day and I picked up the phone and was like, Mercedes-Benz of Greensboro, how can I direct your call?
On your mobile?
On my fucking cell phone. Like I was like, all right, this is not, it.
You know what's funny is I've done that as well though when I was at the pizzeria. Yeah. Because it was like, I'm just standing there picking the phone, but
muscle memory is great.
It's only when I'm in the pizzeria that I do it.
Oh, okay. No, I was out of there.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
But when I'm doing it 60, 70, 80 times a day or more, it's like that's why I had a hard time. Like my boyfriend and I are long distance, and like it took me a little minute to sort of adjust to like talking on the phone, like. And that being a positive experience.
Having to readjust to actually enjoy talking on the phone?
Yeah. Like FaceTime is cool. Yeah. It's different to me because I'm seeing you.
Also with FaceTime, warn me before you FaceTime me.
Yeah.
Don't just FaceTime me out of the blue.
If it's my boyfriend, I don't care.
That's different. But I'm talking about my friends and stuff like that.
Oh my God. Please send a text first.
Just be like, hey, can I FaceTime you real quick?
I'm not in the space.
Let me mentally prepare for that.
Right. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I want I have to be mentally prepared to be on a video call. I'm sorry.
Even a phone call.
Yeah. I just text me. Please, for the love of God, if it's textable, text me, and I'll respond to you as soon as I can.
But anyway, hated the job.
Hated it.
Never, so finally, how long did you last?
I think they wanted to do my interview on Christmas Eve, and I thought that was weird.
That's weird. Red flag.
Yeah, red flag 1, and it was kind of just like red flag after that. But anyway, I started like January 1st. Basically, I started after Christmas, and I think I lasted until August or May or August, so like 6-8 months.
I'm stressing to make sure this thing's still recording.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, we're good.
Yeah. So anyway, 6 or 8 months. That was about it, and then finally, it was like the art was really taking off in a way that I was like behind on commissions. So I'm like, why am I like, and I had to drive 30 minutes and it paid $11 an hour.
Garbage.
$11 an hour for that stress. I'm like, that's not even $1 a phone call.
No, not at that point. Because that was my turnover point too to go on full time, where it was like I had so many days. I worked probably 40 hours. At one point I was working 60 hours a week, but it was like 40 hours when I worked a lot. It was like I was doing like 40 hours, 45, somewhere to take, and I would basically, all the spare time I had was devoting to doing photos and videos.
Yeah.
And it got to the point last year in December, I looked at my January schedule, and all my days off were booked already. And I was like, I physically could not take another job right now if I wanted to. Yeah. And I was like, And there was some stuff going on at the pizzeria, nothing to do with the previous owners. They loved them to death. The dudes would have paid my rent if I needed them to.
Yeah.
Things switched, or business was switching over, new people coming in.
Yeah.
Wasn't a fan of new people.
Yeah.
They had
which happens.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to take this. This is the perfect opportunity for me to leave.
Yeah.
Because I was about to have to switch everything over to the new people, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to jump. So I just went, to jump. But yeah, and then next thing I know, fucking started filling out, and then even the days I didn't have free were,
Well, now it's like, I probably work 60 hours with what I do.
For sure.
But it doesn't, like, I'm not pissed about it because it's like stuff I actually want to do.
I don't mind sitting down and doing it.
Yeah. So it's like, I'll work at 12. Like last night, I think I got home from the studio at like 8:30 p.m. or something. And like, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And that's not every day. That's unusual. I don't do that every day. But like, I go in the studio every morning. I'm in there by very latest 10. And I'm there at least until 5 or 6. Every day. Most of the time I'm in there earlier. So I've just started trying to go to the gym, and that makes it, pushes it back a little bit.
That'll do it to you.
That'll do it.
What else did I have on here? You interned in CMA?
Oh, yeah.
How was that?
So it was great. So I teach actually.
They offer a lot of different internships.
Right. They're unpaid.
Well,
so
very much so.
Yeah,
I looked at them at one point. Yeah, very much unpaid.
But yeah, so I helped with the summer camps, and I just loved it because like I've always loved kids. I've had a big family, a lot of cousins. I'm the oldest.
Better than me.
Yeah, I'm the oldest. So when you're the oldest girl and you're the oldest girl cousin,
you basically babysit.
You're basically mom 2.0.
Yeah. Well, you're the cool mom for sure.
Yeah, like the cool mom, but yeah, like, I was definitely babysitting. Like, we would go on beach trips and they'd be like, all right, we're gonna go, like, I'm watching the kids. So, and I love kids. I've always loved kids, and I love teaching kids art. And so I was like, well, if I intern, maybe I could have like some sort of an in at some point for like something that I would want to do. And so I interned with them one summer doing like helping with all the summer camps and basically filling spaces. And the summer camps at NCMA are awesome for the kids. All the teachers they have are incredible. So after I graduated, the program director reached out, and so I've basically been teaching art camps there every summer.
Okay.
Since then, since I graduated, so I think like I'm on like year 5 now. Almost
Damn. Okay.
Teaching.
So you've been doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize you still did it.
Yeah. So I still do it. It pays well. It's a great break from what I do and a guaranteed income for the summer, which is for the freelance life, which is great. And I really enjoy it. Like I get to plan out what I want to do. I get to plan the activities. For the most, I've only had like 1 or 2 weeks where I was like, I would literally walk out right now. But that has more to do with the kids than anything that was going on in the program. Yeah,
Most of the time I've ever wanted to walk out, it's rarely been because of the people I'm with or the people I'm working with. It's always the customer or whatever I'm enticing.
Well, listen, I got to tell you this story about Fiber Fun Week.
Fiber Fun Week?
Yes.
So is that like Textile Week, I guess?
Yeah, so it's like anything to do with fibers. And so I'm teaching a bunch of 6 and 7-year-olds, or maybe they were 8, I don't remember, but we only have the kitty scissors. You imagine trying to do anything with fiber with kitty scissors.
Oh, you're not cutting it?
So I have
does it cut?
No, like I had like 6 breakdowns a day, and then finally, like the class was over half boys, and, like little boys who half of them didn't want to be there, and so by the end of the week, like on Thursday, the day from the end of the week, granted it's a long camp, like they come in at 9 and they leave at like 4:30 or 4:15, so it's almost a full day, and for 8-year-olds that's a lot.
That's a long.
Yeah. So by Thursday, the boys start a chant. Fiber not fun. Fiber not fun. And I was like, Jesus.
Because what do you even do with that?
I was like, I'm just sitting there like, this is mutiny. Like,
this is how Lord of the Flies started.
I just like look at my teaching assistant and I'm like, yeah, fiber's not fun for me either right now, y'all. I don't know what to tell. I joined in. I'm like, fiber not fun.
Dude, that's the other thing. Parents, I was like, don't put your kids in something they genuinely don't want to do.
For an 8-hour day.
For more than 1 day a week.
Right, for 5 days for 8 hours a day. Like, so it was a time, like looking back, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
but at the time I was just like so frustrated. I'm like, I don't know what to do. After some, yes. You're saying all these things and I'm just like, I look like an insane person. Like, why did I do all these random things? So yeah, After Some is a poetry book I wrote. I started writing poetry before I started making music, and a lot of my earlier songs on my first project started as poems.
Okay.
So that's why it's a lot more like, I think I started to learn more like, more complex is not always better for a song.
Sure.
Sometimes simpler is easier for people to grasp and like has more of a, to it.
Well, it's like the first time I listened to The Garden, I felt very freestyle.
It was.
Exactly.
Half of it was freestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think but it's also like you can get, like, it's been done. Like D'Angelo is a great example. There is very little song structure to majority of his songs. Now, some of them definitely have song structure for sure.
Yeah, and some of mine had song structure, but
some
a lot
of
them don't.
Just freestyle.
Yeah.
And they sound fucking amazing. The Voodoo album and the Garden album, because the first thing when I listened to your album, I was like, yo, damn, like, why does this give me D'Angelo vibes? And then I went back.
I love D'Angelo.
I went back and listened to Voodoo, and I was like, this is why.
Because the song structure is not there.
It's the same exact. I don't know. First time I listened to Voodoo, I remember being like, I don't know what's coming next.
Right.
Even song-wise, like within the song, is like, I don't know how he's about to do the next 30 seconds.
Yeah. Now I'm no D'Angelo, but
For sure.
I'm working on it.
But the influence is there for sure.
Yeah. And I think the first project I did, I was like, I tried to follow all the rules and do it the way that I wanted, do it the way that I kind of thought I needed to do it. And, as I kind of learned, I feel
like people still do that, unfortunately.
They do. And like, it does work to an extent.
There is a level.
And there are songs in which it makes sense to stick to that, right?
Okay, yeah,
100%.
fair enough.
Say Grace, right? Say Grace, I stuck to a structure. But there was a lot of like, it still feels very free because of the production, because of the, it doesn't feel overly done. And
you let a lot of notes loom.
And
like
breathe.
Yeah. There's plenty of breathing going on. You good? You need to answer it?
No, it's a FaceTime call from Aaliyah. I'm in the middle of a podcast.
Just talked about this, people.
Anyway,
no preference
send
for
me a
sex.
text before the FaceTime. You don't know where I'm at.
Straight to the FaceTime.
She's literally gonna be like, "Why are you in Raleigh? Why are you at someone's house in Raleigh?" Because she has a studio in Raleigh in her space. She's
probably gonna be like, "You should come out."
Yeah.
Put her on the pod. No, I was kidding.
Anyway, put her on the pod.
Yeah, song structure. You don't need it.
So you don't, like, if you're using it for a purpose, cool. But I think I took a step back and realized, like, if my message can be done without the structure, then like, what is the point of the structure except that it's what you're supposed to do?
Why follow the rules if I don't need it to?
Well, and I think even my music making process really like sort of mirrors like, you know, I kind of like am unlearning like how much of the rules do you need to know? How much do you not need to know? Like, because at some point when you know too much of the right thing with music, it's like sometimes you lose the feeling because you're so concerned about
following the rules.
Yeah, following the rules. And the cool thing about music is you can break the rules if you have a reason to.
But it also goes back, I think a lot of people try to break, I think there's a lot of musicians and artists now, because the music industry is so easily accessible now, where it's like they go straight into breaking the rules, which is cool, and if it works, it works. But it's like a lot of times people just go straight into breaking the rules, and I'm like, it's like, just learn a little bit.
You have to learn the rules to know how to break them correctly.
And then you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Right.
Like, look at Tyler. He was a very much, I think, came into the scene knowing he's very musically gifted from the jump. Yeah. For sure. And so it's
he went and learned a whole bunch before he did Flower Boy.
He talked about Pharrell having that conversation where he's like, do you know house music? And he's like, what, like house music? And he's like, no, like buy a house music. Like based music that'll buy you a house. And he said after that, went home. He said, I spent the next whatever months, years, literally reading song structure, music theory, everything. And then next project gets Flower Boy.
Right.
And Flower Boy sonically is
insane.
Beautiful. Like beautiful.
Insane. Yeah.
But it goes back to like, just because you know the facts isn't a bad thing. Right,
and he didn't even follow all the rules with Flower Boy. But he learned the rules so that he knew how to break them. And so that's where I'm kind of now in my journey. Like I'm taking vocal lessons with Alora Dash. I don't know if you know her.
Shout out Alora.
Freaking amazing. Shout out Alora. And
go to her page. I promise you she's performing somewhere.
Oh my God, all the time?
All the time.
And you're going to love it. Sonically, it's going to make your ears happy. But yeah, so I'm just learning like, I mean, I didn't know what a mode was. I didn't know what a chord was. I didn't know what anything was. I was completely off ear. So it's been kind of a mind fuck to like go backwards and break it down and figure out like, I was just going off because it felt like it worked. It felt good. It sounded good, but now I understand why it sounds good. It's mathematical for the most part. It's not perfect, but yeah. So learning that and trying to really kind of marry the more complex writing, but also the freedom of structure and all that kind of stuff in my next project. So it is in the baby stages.
For sure. But it's also back, it goes with anything where it's like, even no matter what point you are, like Tyler's fucking another great example. It's like that dude was already flourishing as far as a career.
He was great.
And he was like, you know what, I'm going to go relearn some stuff.
Well, and one of the things I saw too in that, was it a documentary or what was that?
I think it was something Hulu did.
Yeah.
It was the Rap Radar.
Yeah. And so
Rap Caviar.
Something like that.
Someone did a spin-off and it was like a series. There were multiple layers to it.
Right.
But Tyler's was like the very first episode. I think the only one I watched. Yeah. But either way, but yeah.
Well, and one of the things he talked about that I thought was cool. Well, now I don't remember it.
Thank you. Sorry.
I thought about it. That was fine.
That was my fault.
No, it's okay. I lose my thoughts quickly.
I'm talking about breaking structure. Learning things to break them again. Yeah,
I know.
You probably never gonna remember.
I don't know. He was talking about it and that like, he was doing all that outlandish behavior, which was kind of his personality and he took it as a joke. But I think that he was talking about how people started to know him. People were knowing him for his antics before they knew.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what he called it, honestly.
I don't know either, but all
right, let's see what we can get here before we overheat again.
Okay, cool.
All right, so we're finishing the music thing. Anyway, last thing, Dolores Fletcher, Cobweb Catcher.
Oh, so that's kind of a interesting thing. So my philosophy, so I took a class my senior year called Philosophy of the Mind.
Okay.
And so
love philosophy.
Really
one of my favorite classes.
Freaking cool class. But the professor who was teaching it, his wife was an author and he's an author. And so his wife wrote the book Dolores, whatever, Cobweb Catcher, Dolores Fletcher, Cobweb Catcher. And so that was like the first book cover I ever did. And so now I like, one of the other things I do freelance is book covers. Yeah. I work with Blue Shades Publishing and they published after some of my poetry book.
Yeah, that's it. Because that's how to double check to make sure it was actually you.
Yeah, so it was me. And so it was published through Blue Shades Publishing, but they told me if I ever wanted to release anything, like, I could release it, let them know.
I feel like their cover art.
They're super cool. It's super similar.
Yeah.
It's just more technical in terms of, like, it's not just a square, like,
and you have information that there's information you have to have on there.
So I make book covers.
Yeah.
If you need a book cover, if you're writing
a book,
let me know, because I know how to do it correctly.
All right, well, then that's literally all the notes I have. And we've gotten to the music we talked about. Anything you want to reveal leading into the year? Anything you want to talk about how you coming up? Not a Show is always on the radar.
Not a Show's on the radar. Definitely support. That's where a lot of my time has been going recently, trying to really like build that up. Because I think at the end of the day, like I want to uplift the community. And just uplift amazing artists. Yeah, build a community that feels like it's artist focused in the sense, like I feel like artists are just constantly having to compete to be seen. And I don't think that it has to be that way.
No.
Because we've proven it doesn't have to be that way with Not a Show. And so like definitely come out to Not a Shows if you can. They're always free. It's pay what you can. We give the money back to the artists. Literally take it, divide it between all the artists, the photographer, and that's what happens. So there's no funny business. Like I'm probably losing money doing it, which is fine. But
you have to lose money to make money, even if you're not trying.
Well, this is not even about. I was about to say
your goal is not going to make money anyway.
Like this is about community. This is about artistry, and at the end of the day, it ends up all feeding into all the artists who get to perform, get new fans. I'm able to sort of create a community and a platform that then also helps my artistry in a way. Because when, like, the cool thing about artists and connecting with artists is, like, artists are very supportive of each other here anyway. And I think especially when you can show that, like, you're not out to get, I think there's this, like, artists are very guarded because there's this perception that, like, because you are constantly, like, the number of DMs I've received since I started doing music that are, like, scams to try to get me to pay to play, to pay for the, pay to perform, pay to, pay
whatever.
To have an interview, pay to have this, pay to have that. It's just like freaking crazy. And it's like, people don't even realize like a lot of my songs that are out and a lot of artist songs that are out, they don't even have the majority share in the distro. Because if you're cutting in a feature, you're cutting in a producer, you don't have the majority share and you're paying for everything. So it's like being an artist is difficult and it's costly and it's like...
And the return is not high.
And the return is not high unless you're at the high level.
Unless you're doing the touring, doing the merch, all the extra stuff.
That is the money in the touring and the merch
But you have to have the money to do
those things. Yeah. Right? And so I think for me, like my passion was like, how can I build this community here so that like we have a community of people that support each other where it's not money focused. It's not about that. And we remove that as a factor. Number one, for people to find new fans, because there's people who would love to hear music live but can't afford a ticket.
To go, yeah.
There's people.
That shit adds up, man.
And it adds up. It really does. Like, I would rather you come and be able to listen to these artists that you find that you really like and they're local and that you can support, because at the end of the day, the support means everything. That's really what pushes you to keep going. And, if I can find one artist, 5 new fans, like, I did my job.
That's a job well done, for sure.
Yeah. Because I know in the reverse when it's happened for me and I've done a show and I've, gained like, or even, one person came up to me after the last show and was like, you've gained a new fan, like you're great. And I was like, just like people don't realize how much those comments.
That one conversation.
Make, I just left feeling like, oh my God, like this is the best day ever. That was so nice of them to say. Because it's one thing to come and show up, but to actually express that to the artist means so much. So.
Yeah. And then I guess any CJ Monet to look forward to?
Yeah, so I'm in the baby stages of a new project, but this is one I really want to be very comprehensive, and with the amount of work I'm putting into Not a Show at the moment, it's not moving as fast as I expected it to, which is fine. That's how life works.
Yeah, it's going to move how it wants.
I would rather it be very good than be rushed and quicker.
For sure.
So, and I tend to like to move fast and get things out and whatever, and I'm realize that is not going to work for the level I want this to be at. So I'm having to kind of just let go a little bit of my timeline because I'm like, but I can't do that with this.
It'll come when it comes.
Right, because I'm trying to, do live production to work with local musicians, and that when you include other people in, it's always going to take longer, and so. But it's going to be better.
Exactly.
So that's the trade-off. But yeah, it's going to be a multidisciplinary project with sort of an art history basis focus. And I'm also going to make art pieces for each one of the songs. So that in and of itself is a year-long project to create some pieces for each song. So I had high hopes that it would be out in 6 months, which is not going to happen.
But it's also, if you didn't give yourself that range, it would have taken longer.
Yeah. Yeah, because I would rather do it like that and then it end up being double that time and it's still a reasonable time period than saying it's going to take me 2 years, and then I get to the end of the
2 years and you're like,
and I'm like, oh my God, I procrastinated and waited too long. Like I'm constantly thinking like this and moving like this, and you know, I'm having to realize that like you can't do that with everything, and that's okay. You know, but you can bring that energy to the project just in a different way than maybe you thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But either way, new CJ coming eventually sometime. If you're in Raleigh, Durham.
Raleigh, Durham, maybe Charlotte, because I do go out there if you want to book me in Charlotte. I'll say it. I don't care.
Yeah, look up for Not a Show. Look
Anywhere
out for CJ.
you want to book me, I will go.
But yeah, look forward, CJ. Thank you for coming and being a part of this for the first
You're
one.
welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Fine.
Got to talk about all my random side quests today.
Yeah, dude, tons. But yeah, y'all tune in. We got more coming.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll be back around.
And there's video this time.
Rags.
Which makes sense because you were having a podcast with no video, but you're a videographer.
Well, I wasn't a videographer at the time.
Oh.
I was still doing the music heavily.
Okay, so that makes more sense.
I had just started doing photos here and there, but the video didn't get into play yet.
Huh. Okay. See, I've only known you as a videographer.
Right? Crazy.
Because that's when I met you. So it's interesting at the point at which you insert yourself in people's lives, your perception of them is completely different.
Well, it's like when I went to high school. Like all my friends from school know me as Will.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it's my middle name. And yeah, so like everyone.
So you went by Will?
My mom didn't think I wanted to go by artist. And then when I got to college, I was like, no, fuck that.
Wow, that's way cool.
Because I'm in a class of 300 people, and they're like, artist? I'm like, yeah, I'm here. Not like, actually, it's Will. And then I was like, yeah, no, we're fine.
No, artist is cool. And it's like, yeah, it's much cooler. I could see how in a small country town, artists would be like, oh,